police have powers to arrest, without warrant, anyone whom they have reasonable belief to be a suspected person, and that's sus. Sir David McNee, the police commissioner, is on record as saying that the force needs the present law for its full armoury against beating crime. But the House of Commons Home Affairs Committee, on the other hand, have said that if this law isn't repealed soon, then their members will launch a bill in the House. Well, we've got a member of that committee in the theatre this afternoon, Mr. John Wheeler, JP, MP, ex-prison governor and policeman, and we'll be coming to him later. But first, it's our chance to say what we think about police treatment of young people and the sus laws in particular. So, let's take it away. I know we've got a few people here with experience of policemen and with experience of being a young person. So, where are we going to go to first? Right, over there.
Yeah, I was picked up not so long ago, about 2 o'clock in the morning walking home.
Yeah.
I was asked a lot of questions, and they also made me turn up the pockets.
They searched you?
They searched me, yeah.
Yeah, well, you were just walking along the street?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Nothing more?
No.
At 2 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely doing nothing? Anybody else? This must have happened to a lot of people. It's happened to me as well.
Yeah, the same thing happened to me. I've been to a party and I was walking home on Saturday night. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd missed my train, so I was hitchhiking home. Yeah. And when I thought I got a lift, I mean, it turned out to be our friends. And, you know, and they sort of stopped, got out and said, you know, what are you doing? You know, as sort of down from London, like, mate, you know. And, you know, they asked me a lot of questions where I lived, what I was doing, you know. As they made it look as though, well, what the hell are you doing on the streets this time of night, you know.
As if there's no right to walk home at 2 o'clock in the morning.
You know.
And was their attitude rough or polite or what?
No, they weren't polite. They were just narrow-minded about, you know, they were just one-track mind.
So what was the result of all that? What, did they give you a lift home or did they throw you back out again?
No, I said, are you going my way?
And
yeah. You know, in the end, they didn't. They just sort of dropped it. I was expecting something. You know, I said where I lived and they sort of made out so they knew where I lived, which I don't think.
Did they take your address, your name and address?
Yes, they did actually.
They did. They generally do that, don't they? Yeah. Anybody else here who's had their name and address taken down by the police for no apparent reason? Yep, over there.
Yeah, I have quite recently actually. I was sort of just like this guy, sort of walking along the road, and I got stopped and asked my name and address. I wanted also to make the point that I think one of the main problems is that we seem to have very little comeback on the police simply because they deal with about 95% of the complaints against themselves. And the government's new proposed Public Order Act seems to be giving them more power, if it goes through, that is, give them more power to arrest and arrest for obstruction.
Are there people here who actually, when you're walking home late at night, at say 2 o'clock in the morning, are actually pleased to see the police out on the streets because, you know, it means you're not going to get mugged or something? Yeah, over here.
I think it's nice to know that somebody around on the streets watching out for people coming home from pubs, you know, who are drunk, who've had too much to drink, and who might just suddenly pounce on you.
Yeah. So you like to see the police on the streets? Yeah. Have we got anybody else here who's in favour of the sus law? Yeah, down here first in the red.
I'm really in favour of it because I got beaten up once by some people and the police were very quick and they picked these people up on sus, and then they were in fact people who beat me up, and I was very pleased with that.
Had they beaten you up first?
Yeah.
So they weren't exactly suspected people?
Well, they didn't know who to look for because I didn't recognise people because it was so quick they came from behind.
But they just got them in a general roundup?
Got them in, and then I recognised the voice, and I told them that was the person who did me over.
Yeah, so it worked all right for you there?
Yeah, and I think police on the street.
Yeah. Right, can we go to the middle down there?
One of the major criticisms of suffrage is surely the fact that the racial inequality, that often the biggest percentage of people who get caught on sus are often blacks. I think that's a bit unfair, and that, you know, I think this is the major criticism. Obviously you need that law, but some law which will say that police should be fair and arrest all people, not just people whose skins or black, but also people who just look ordinary if they really...
Because that depends upon the partiality of the particular policeman.
Yeah, and this is it. And you've got to have policemen who know that, you know, who are not going to be impartial. Because too many policemen are a bit bent these days. Not in that way, but, you know.
Well, perhaps we could come to John Wheeler for a bit now. You've heard some of the young people here saying that they agree with sus and some saying they don't. We know that the committee you're on discussed it and came out against it. Perhaps you could just say some reasons why the Home Affairs Committee came down on sus?
Well, first of all, I don't think we've been talking about sus, the actual offence under Section 4 of the Vacancy Act 1824 at all.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the perfect right that a citizen has, or a constable, to stop and talk to anybody in the street. Now, that is a right that we all have as citizens, and a police constable has that right too. Sus as such, the charge of arresting a person and taking them to court, is very rarely used. There are only about 2,000 such charges in London in a 12-month period. But the Home Affairs Select Committee said that the law was wrong because it's wrong in principle to arrest someone and to charge them and perhaps have them convicted of a criminal offence arising from what it is believed they intended to do. And it's wrong in principle, and it's for this reason that it's contrary to the law of the country, and it's for this reason that the Home Affairs Select Committee say it must be repealed. It's been a controversial law for many years now,
Yes.
way back to the 19th century.
Yeah. Perhaps we could ask you, your committee have said that they're going to bring a private member's bill up in the House. When is this going to happen?
Well, we've already had a debate on the Vagrancy Act, and it's quite clear what the House of Commons thinks. As a whole, it believes this law must go, and it must go soon. So there must be no further delay. Section 4 of the Vagrancy Act must be repealed. But this does not stop a police officer from talking to anybody in the street. And I think that's the confusion that the audience must understand.
Right down over there.
Let's say there is somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he's intending, for instance, to mug somebody. I mean, I'm sure lots of people have been inconvenienced, but surely it's better to have a sus law to arrest people who are about to murder somebody or to mug somebody. I mean, OK, they might go up to this murderer and ask him questions and he gives the name and address, but they haven't got any power to arrest him. They haven't got any power to stop him doing the thing. I mean, what's the point of waiting until he has mugged somebody?
So you're trying to say that they have to pick you up? They have to pick you up to say, oh, yes, I think you're looking rather suspicious. Why should this one look suspicious? All right, sus law is being used, OK? It's obvious it's not being used fairly, right? Because 85% of the people picked up are either young or black, right? And what...
Right, can we come back to John Wheeler now
Well,
and see what he's going to say about
Let me say at once that what the young girl has said up there is absolutely correct. And this is why the House of Commons Select Committee, which is the guardian of liberties for everyone in this country, said the Act or the section must be repealed. There is nothing wrong in a police officer stopping to talk to anybody in the street. What a police officer must not do is to break the law when he's talking to a fellow citizen. Remember, a police constable in our country, unlike, say, France or practically any other country of the world, is a citizen, just like you or I, with the same rights and obligations. And a police constable must not break the law just to further the ends of the police service. And I think if there were a police officer present here today, he would say exactly the same. That's very important. If a police officer breaks the law, there are procedures that the citizen can follow to obtain redress, and there are several procedures. But also, let's consider the point of view of the police. Most police officers on duty in the streets are 19 years of age or in their early 20s. They're not much older than the people in this audience. And they have to do a very difficult job because they have to try and keep the peace for the benefit of the people who use the streets. There's nothing wrong in using the streets at 2 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning. Every citizen has a perfect right to use the streets in that way. But the police have the duty of ensuring that it is safe for people to use the streets.
Right, a few more people absolutely raring to go. In yellow, right over there.
You said that the police had a right to pick up anybody, but the people they pick up are usually young or black. Why don't they pick up old people? Because old people are more likely to go around touching young girls than anyone.
I think... So are young people, actually.
I tend to find that police officers get very, very stroppy with young people, just because
you know, they're wearing a uniform, and young people, they tend to think that they're good for nothing all the time, and they get very stroppy, which just really isn't necessary.
Yeah. Perhaps, John Wheeler, I could ask you something. Who is there that can tell the police force just to be a bit more careful with young people, or else a whole generation of people will grow up just feeling themselves totally against the whole force, and that they're not policing our streets, but just intimidating us? Who is there to say that?
There's nothing new in this situation. The police force in London has existed since 1829, and ever since it was founded, people have made these complaints against it. The truth is that if you look at public opinion polls, the police service and the monarchy comes out at the top as being the most popular institutions in the country.
Sir Robert Mark did say in his little book about crime and the young that the main thing about young people is not actually to put them in prison, but just to keep arresting them and to frighten them. But of course, the more police hassle you on the streets, surely the less scared you get actually of being arrested. Does anybody feel like that actually you've got less respect for the police simply because they come up to you, you know, as a matter of course when you're walking home at night, and you become less scared of them and less respectful of them? Is that a general feeling?
Yeah, I feel sometimes that way. Because if you go out for a drink at night and with your friends, and you're going over to a beef burger stand and get something to eat, and round comes a police car, then they say, oh, aye, no, here's a bunch of lads, let's go and have a chat, and they sit in the corner in their car, just waiting for you to make a wrong move. As you're talking about sus now, if I was to walk along the street in a leather jacket,
Yeah.
and go past a load of cars, even walking past, I could be nicked for sussed. And what if I was wearing a suit and tie and a briefcase and walked past, and a policeman saw me? He wouldn't do much, would he?
Right. Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there for this week.